My name is Alok Prara. I will be moderating this session today, and the session is being supported by Electrosteel. Can I request my colleagues to have the gallery view now? Those of you who are logged in, if you can go to the gallery view, that way you'll be able to watch all of these speakers there. We organize this webinar because in the post-COVID-19 world, the role of water is even more important, whether it is drinking or whether it is for irrigation. So domestic water supply, irrigation, and water conservation all need greater attention. Of course, we need to respond to these new or greater needs and requirements with making sure that our programs are reinforced and re-engaged in a bigger way. And also perhaps to think in terms of taking new initiatives, and also to make sure the projects that we have going on are not impeded on account of funding or clearances or any new restrictions. So to that end, we are taking a small step with this webinar, and we'll discuss today the needs, the challenges, and the strategies on the policies that are being deployed or need to be deployed. The format is going to be very interactive. I'm going to have different questions for different people. So we're not going to have speeches as such or remarks. We'll just have lots of questions. Let me introduce the panelists to you, and then I will also mention to you as to what role we expect each of the panelists to play. We have with us and this is in alphabetic order, I should say. Mr. G. Ashok Kumar, who's Additional Secretary and Mission Director, National Water Mission, Ministry of Water Resources, River Development, and Ganga Rejuvenation. He's an IS officer and as such worked in different areas before. Previously, he was the Ministry of Civil Aviation. And of course, at the state level, he's worked with both water projects as well as road projects, etc. And to Mr. Ashok Kumar, we will expect him to really talk about water resource management and irrigation, etc., and represent that perspective.
Good morning.
Good morning. Also with us, somebody who's going to join us for a short while later on was Mr. Shalabh Kumar, member water supply, and he will give us a sense of the challenges on implementing drinking water projects on ground. Mr. Avinash Mishra, he's advisor and water and land resources at NITI Aayog, has about 3 decades of experience, has been engaged in all issues of water-related issues, and therefore we will expect him for a more holistic and more pan-country, pan-sector, pan-segment perspective. And therefore, I'll be going to him first after I've introduced you all. And Mr. Vinod Kumar Niranjan will provide the ground perspective on implementing irrigation projects, and he'll be asking what the challenges. Mr. Roy represents Electrosteel Castings, and he'll represent effectively the equipment manufacturer and the contractor perspective, again, the issues on the ground. Ms. Thara, Joint Secretary and Mission Director, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, also an IS officer, also been a municipal commissioner in Ahmedabad before. We will ask her for more perspective that relates to implementation of schemes relating to drinking water, to stormwater drainage, and that aspect of water. So we have a very, very complete panel, a very good panel, and providing us both with an overall perspective as well as both the central from Delhi view of things and also some ground reality as well. I'm going to go to Mr. Mishra first. Mr. Mishra, in this post-COVID world, from your point of view, if your higher ups, be it Mr. Kant, Mr. Kumar, or Mr. Modi, ask you, and I'm sure they have been asking you, what are our priorities now? What do we need to do in the next 6 months, 12 months, 18 months? Mr. Mishra, you're the first one to start, sir. And if you can unmute yourself. Sir, if you can unmute yourself. Sir, you have to unmute yourself here. Yes,
good morning, everybody. As far as the priority for the water resources sector is concerned, as you know, that water is such which is contributing 6% to the GDP. So the overall GDP, whatever we are getting, the 6% contribution is coming from water resources sector. Actually, after some time, the water is not only limited to social good, but it becomes the economic good. It means that the industries, the food self-sufficiency, everything gets governed with the water resources and its availability. But the problem here lies the management part. You see, the consumption level of water, what we are consuming today, is the same what the China is consuming today. But despite of that, they are able to support a larger population than what we are there in our country. They are able to support much more higher industrial development than what we are experiencing. And similarly, their infrastructure, everything is much higher. Then where is the gap? If you see 700 BCM, billion cubic meter of water is being used by China as on date, as well as by us. However, we are not that better blessed in terms of the storability of the water. The water storage potential in this country per capita is around 262 meter cube, whereas in China is around 1100 meter cube, whereas in case of the US and other countries, Russia and all, it is beyond that 2000 meter cube or 6000 meter cube per capita. So keeping this in view, we should really manage the water. So we are actually thinking to move from creating of the water bodies more and more to the management of water bodies. Now let us see how we are actually using and managing our water. The irrigation efficiency in case of the irrigation structure, it is 30 to 40%. Means 70 to 60% of water we are just wasting. It is getting wasted in transmission losses. It is getting wasted in control structures. It is because of the leakage of the various gates of the dams and all. And in a majority of the cases, our dams got silted up. So these are the position which is to be seen first and foremost. Now coming to the domestic uses of water, then it is a very skewed supply. For instance, in Delhi, the water supply per capita varies from 45 liter per capita per day to cantonment area around 375 liter per capita per day. So this is again a variation. Here again, we are losing, all our municipal bodies are losing the water from 20 to 30%, or in some cases it is even more than 30% in the transmission and distribution losses. In case of industrial production, one product which we are producing here, and if it gets produced globally anywhere other than India, then the water consumption in India is 300% higher than what it would be. So in industrial production, again, we are not that better managed, we are not efficient. Coming to the reuse of wastewater, see the wastewater collection, again it is a big problem. Only 50% of waste which gets generated is getting collected. Out of that, only 38% gets treated. And after this treated wastewater, a very minimal is getting reused. So naturally, we have to come in a cycle where the wastewater gets collected and it is again put for the secondary and tertiary uses of the water, which is not happening in this country and which is first and foremost required. Now coming to the next, the tariff for the water related. You know well, it's a political thing that whatever the water, so much amount of water would be free, or the water for electricity, water for irrigation is free. And whenever there is some free component, that certainly protect the operation and maintenance part, because the revenue collected is not that sufficient to really plow back it for maintenance. So maintenance gets hampered. Because of that, all these structures are not better managed and better maintained. Again, we are not providing the volumetric supply of water which is to be provided. As a consequence, what is happening? The majority of the farmers having a dependence on the groundwater. If we see the groundwater uses today, the groundwater uses are much higher in this country. If we put the total use of China and the total use of US, both put together, we are exceeding than that. Today we are using 253 to 258 BCM of groundwater. And the position of groundwater usage is such that our 85% water supplies are dependent on groundwater. 60% of urban water supply is also dependent on groundwater. As a result, some 52% of observation wells they are showing constant decline on each and every monsoon after rain. So this is happening in case of the water resources sector and water resources scenario. Then let us come to the policy prescription. What we should do? Really, we should first, pricing of water should be rational. We should really complete all our ongoing projects on priority, because water is, as I said earlier, this is the core for any economic development. Then what next to be done? We should really sensitize the people for its uses, for its better and efficient water management. Now actually, because of the pandemic, we are really consuming more water on domestic front. Thank to God, because we are consuming more to domestic front, but other installations are not actually operating, like industries, like hotel and restaurant industry, they are not working. But if they all will put in position, and as the summer is ahead, I am greatly doubtful that we will be able to manage this water or not. So we will not be able to manage. I think we should really start right now. Moreover, traditional wisdom of conserving the water in our water bodies, in our water tanks, that has also been lost. In southern India, a lot of water conservation through tanks, step tanks has been done, but it is not being actually adopted. A survey said that out of 6 lakh water bodies, those were there, we have already lost 1 lakh water bodies as a part of encroachment and all. So the priority to this government would be more for managing the water and for optimizing the water use. We are annually publishing composite water management index, where we are ranking the states according to their management practices and grading them. Now we are thinking seriously really to go ahead for putting, for incentivizing as per the ranks of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll now go to Mr. Ashok Kumar. Mr. Ashok Kumar, I have 2 things. One is if you can comment on the efficiency of use of water in irrigation, and then you can tell us about smart water mission, and also Sahi Kisan as well.
Good morning, everybody. Avinash had did a very good platform for me to embark on. India is not a water deficit country. You should understand that, because it's not a water scarce country, because we have got sufficient rainfall. As Avinash rightly said, it is because we are not managing the water. There is a problem with it. We don't have a shortage of water if you use the water properly. So that's one basic thing we should understand. If you look at the water usage in the country, about 89% goes for agriculture, and remaining 11% goes for industry, domestic, and other purposes. So our focus rightly should be on better management of water in agriculture, because if you can save at least 10% of water in agriculture, it brings in, that's almost equivalent to the water usage or in irrigation, in domestic water supply and industry sector. That's if you look at the statistics. But generally, we always talk about the drinking water, because it's like it seems it's the big elephant in the room, but actually the bigger elephant is the agriculture. We should actually focus on that. As Avinash rightly said, the water use efficiency in irrigation in India is about only 38%, whereas other countries they have reached 70%, 68%. So there is a tremendous scope for improvement in this sector. But unfortunately, agriculture being much distributed sector, a lot of people get involved in that. And there are politics in it. There are other issues coming with that. So we had not really focused on the improving the water efficiency in agriculture. That's one primary focus we should do. The National Water Mission actually was formed in 2011 as part of the one of the 8 missions formed in the country to look at the climate change issues. So we had been working on that. So we have 5 goals. One is the comprehensive water database in public domain and assessment of impact of climate on change on water resources. Second is the promotion of citizen and state action plan for water conservation, augmentation, and preservation. Third is the focused attention to vulnerable areas. Fourth is the increased water use efficiency. I just mentioned about at least by 20%, and promotion of the basin level integrated water resource management. So the point which Avinash raised was about the water management. So we have to have an integrated water resource management and basin approach, because here many times the states, we find them fighting against each other for the water and all these things. These are all political boundaries, are not the boundaries of nature. So water boundaries are the basin. So basin management approach has to be taken up in a big way. Having said that, one of the major initiatives which the water mission has taken was in the last 1 year was about on the Sahi Fasal campaign, which Mr. Brara was mentioning. We had taken up a campaign called Sahi Fasal, which literally means the right crop at the right area. If you look at the groundwater usage of exploitation of groundwater for irrigation, as Avinash said, in most of the places, more than surface water, we are now going more and more for groundwater irrigation. Punjab, which we all know as a state of a lot of rivers, and Punjab, 70 to 70% of the irrigation in Punjab is actually taking place from groundwater. There are many incentivizing programs there, which causes this thing, like free power. The policy of the government is to give free power to draw more and more water from the ground. So that really encourages people to draw more water, and then the groundwater level goes down there. In Punjab, you will be surprised to know that out of the 138 blocks, 109 blocks are in the red zone, which is almost 200 to 300% overexploited area. The depth of bore wells have gone down very deep there. And if you go in this way, probably another maybe 5-6 years, there will be very little water left in Punjab, even for drinking. So that's a challenge which we should accept and face it. So we have to have policies in place which will not encourage overexploitation of water. And in this context is where the Sahi Fasal comes in. See, Sahi Fasal actually is to nudge the farmers to go for crops which are suited for the area and which are not water intensive. In Punjab, for example, maybe 50 years or 40 years back, Punjab was not a rice growing area. But now Punjab is producing a lot of rice. If you look at Punjab and Haryana put together, that state occupies about 3% of the area, but it produces about 20 to 28% of the rice for the country. And rice is not consumed in the state. So basically they produce it for consumption of the other parts of the country. And if you look at the water footprint, that's another concept which is very important, because as Avinash mentioned, in industry we use 30% more water. In agriculture also we use very large quantity of water than the benchmark. For 1 kilo of paddy, we use very large, 5,000-6,000 liters of water, whereas in other states it is much less, maybe 1/5 of the water they use it. So we produce crops which are water intensive. Paddy is a very water intensive crop. Cotton is a water intensive crop. Sugarcane is a water intensive crop. We go for these croppings in areas which are water deficient, and on top of it we overuse the water, and our water usage efficiency is very low. So this is where the Sahi Fasal comes in. If you say that we can grow crops like paddy, etc., in places where there is availability of water in plenty, like Ganga Basin, like states in Bihar and maybe Odisha and Madhya Pradesh, where water is available in plenty. This is to address the issue of food security. Let me tell you, we have three times the required quantity of rice stored in our godown, grain stored in our godown, and it's getting wasted actually. But still, we continue to produce more and more rice, basically because of the policies associated with the rice, paddy growing. The intensive incentivization of paddy growing in terms of this support price, minimum support price, and encouraging farmers by giving them free electricity, and no water collected, no charges collected for the water used for agriculture. All these things actually, it has gone to be a laissez-faire policy where farmers continue to exploit water, more and more water, to produce crops which are actually not needed for us. Because we have sufficient quantity, or we should have moved to another area where this water is available and they should go for it. So sugarcane, as I said, is another big water guzzler crop, which we have sufficient stock of sugarcane for us, sugar for this, but still we keep on producing more and more crop. It's a very complex issue to address because it has politics involved in it, it has farmers' welfare involved in it, it is the MSP fixation involved in it, it has the market committees coming into it, it has a procurement policy involved in it. It's a very complicated thing, but then somewhere somebody has to talk about it, and the person who would talk would be the waterman now, because water is the one who is bearing all the brunt.
Right.
Water is the one bearing all the brunt. So that's one thing, the Sahi Fasal. So again, we had been in the country always talking about the supply side management. Every time we try to produce more and more water, we can't produce water, but we try to give more and more water in the form of dams or in forms of other going for borewells or high quality motors, etc. It is time that we should think about the demand side management, because a lot of improvement can be done on the demand side. As I said, we can improve the efficiency of water in agriculture. We can go for crops which are suited for water by giving the concept of water audit and all these things, and telling the farmers that this is the water available in this, so you should go for this crop. We can improve the efficiency in industries. There is definitely scope for industry improvement of water in the industry sector by going for water audits. Water Mission has started this concept of water audits in water intensive industries like power sector. That uses about 80% of the water in the industrial sector. Then we have gone for water audit in the steel, paper pulp industry, leather tannery industries. These are some few of the industries which use a lot of water. So water audit should be made compulsory. Energy audit, if you remember 10 years or 20 years back, we never had energy audit, but now it is becoming much and more important. So before establishing industry, if you look at the water, the availability of energy, how efficiently we are using electricity. So it's high time we get into the concept of water use efficiency, and we also should go for a National Water Bureau of Water Use Efficiency, which we are working on, and in the line at the energy efficiency. So that we can rate the domestic appliances which use lesser water, and also you can rate the industries which use water and try to help them in business re-engineering, so that process re-engineering which will reduce water. That's what we meant. And last one more point before I stop. Right. So as I said, the one important campaign which we started was the Sahi Fasal, which has made some good results, partly because of our efforts and partly because of the COVID also had helped us, because we tried to have these meetings with the farmers in Punjab, in Aurangabad, and in Kurukshetra, where Haryana, where water, the paddy and sugarcane were grown. So because of COVID, I think the migrant laborers have moved out. So the labor availability for agricultural operations has come down. So they have gone for better practices like in direct seeding and all, which reduces the water usage in paddy cultivation. And Punjab and Haryana has come forward with policies for incentivizing maize and other crops. That's one part of it. The second one, which we are planning now, and which I request the participation of all the participants who are here, and then also to spread the message, is about Catch the Rain campaign. It is actually to ensure that the rainwater which comes now in the next couple of months, we should utilize to catch it and store it. So as I said, we cannot create water, but the water which comes created by God and given to us, we should ensure that it is properly caught, stored. As Avinash said, we use only 8% of storage. We have to improve the storage capacity by not making big dams, but small areas. Every house, we should have a rainwater harvesting structure, rooftop rainwater harvesting structures, and institutions which have large area, like railways, army, and education institutions, colleges, universities, etc., which have large area. They should ensure that all the water falling in their compound is stored there and impounded there, and it is not going out. So catch the rain basically means to catch the rain and store it in your own area. This has multiple benefits. One, it increases the water, groundwater, and second, it also reduces the damage caused by urban floods. Because what happened now, most of the cities, we have paved the area. All water which used to fall in the compound goes out to the road onto a stormwater drain, which is not designed to carry so much of water. And because of climate change, large rainfall is also increased. All these compounds is a factor and causes urban flooding, causes damage to the road. All these things can be avoided if we can store the water within your compound. So that's the catch. Thanks for that.
Thank you very much. If you can go to Ms. Tara now to provide us with a drinking water and municipal perspective. Ms. Tara, given the COVID situation, what are your urgent priorities now for the next, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, whether they relate to Amrut programs or other programs? Ms. Tara?
Yeah. As far as Amrut is concerned, I think at this point of time, around 65,000 crore worth of works are going on all over India in 500 cities, which account for 66% of the urban population. If you ask what is the relevance or what is the importance, I think, it's like this, it's too relevant and too basic that nobody even discusses. Water is very basic. But more than anything in slums, washing hands is the better way. Wearing mask and washing hands, these are the two things which are actually preventing the pandemic. So I think unless you have water, you cannot wash your hands. And how do we reach out water to the poor slums and still have the same level of hygiene as we would have in normal households? That's a big challenge. I think it needs a lot of thinking and ground level thrashing out of strategies. As far as water is concerned, my thoughts are that somewhere we know what to do, but we don't know how to do it. See, we all know there should be, we need to catch water, rainwater harvesting should be done. There should be reduction of non-revenue water. We need to relook at the reuse and recycle of water. But I think still in the policy framework, we still have not caught it by its horn. How do we get the people to obey? Now we have enough knowledge of water problems. Actually, it's so good that we have studied every aspect of it. But somehow it has not moved from, from government to water industry. It has moved to the industry part of it. Maybe the pipeline industry, the meter industry, everything. But it still has not reached the citizens. Only when there is a shortage, it actually pinches the citizens. Or it is actually when there is a river sharing dispute that the water becomes a hot topic. Whereas actually we have not still reached every citizen or his mind space as to water is a non-renewable resource as we are using it. It's also a non-renewable resource for several reasons. One is because, as sir already told, we've lost 1 lakh water bodies. No, nobody, we have this data in government, we have this data in the, in say social sector organizations, but it's still not a public knowledge. The most important aspect of any city should be how far you are from your fresh water. I think we need to bring in that kind of awareness. Otherwise, this issue is not going to get solved. So much money is going into it. So many efforts are going in. But I think that missing link has to come in. So when we are supplying water to the, under Amrut, we are putting in water supply infrastructure. And this is the first focused water mission, even before Jal Jeevan mission of the country for urban water. And we are happy that by now we are covered around 78 lakh individual households through water supply connections. And even the poor households are benefiting from this. Very good program. But what we are saying is this program was only addressing the reaching out the existing water to the household. To that extent, it has brought some efficiency in terms of economies. But we need to focus on a complete water value chain. See, we need to make the freshwater bodies, how they are, what is the surface. Actually, NRSC has a surface spread of the water, but depth, I think we need to really do a little bit more exercise at the this thing. And second is, I think it is important that how much non-revenue water, not in terms of water which is not paid for after consumption, but wastage, that has to be taken into account. The third thing, we all know all that, but how do we get the cities to act responsibly? That is the biggest challenge we face in terms of till the water is coming, everybody is getting water. Today it is 50 kilometers away, tomorrow it is 100 kilometers away. It doesn't matter. It is happening, and politically it is important to source water and give it in democracy somehow. So big dams are built, or there are lakes built. The rural, urban, the peri-urban rural areas are actually used for taking away the water. So I find that it is very, very important to pin it down to how do we bring in. One of the ideas which goes in my mind is, water is a bankable resource. See, except for how can we even bring in the private players and bring in that element of user fees and this thing in terms of best quality, like in areas which can pay to start with, an entry point, easy entry point, where the cities can bring in private players, and we give a amount of raw water at a particular place, and this gets distributed to the households, and this gets measured, and people pay for it. Can we look at that model? Because this has been part of the Jal Jeevan Mission Urban document, that we wanted to bring in that concept of private player into the water, because water, we pay less for water than we pay more for our cable TV. Tata scale is zyada paisa bharte hai compared to water. So I think the problem is, if you say more, everybody, including the mayor and other people, would feel very difficult to raise the water. But I think if you give it to a private player and benchmark the standards and say, okay, you will supply so much, but you will get, today it is doable. Earlier it might have been a difficult thing, but today it is doable. Some places it has succeeded, very, very few places. I think we need to bring that conscious. Number two, we need to make it like, there could be a mission only to harvest water this monsoon. Like, for example, urban flooding, sir was talking, we can harvest water. But saying is one thing, but if the municipal commissioners decide, in Ahmedabad, there used to be an area where, which is a prime area, prime part of our city, but still used to have a waterlogging problem. Simply we did reverse bore on the roads, not in any other place, on the roads, ensuring that the sewage water doesn't flow. A little bit of sewage water does get mixed up in the rain, and it goes into the, so this prevented urban flooding, but the recharging also happened. So that is one thing. And river basin rejuvenation, I think that is the most important, to hold the water underground, unless you hold the water. And fourth is, I think we need to seriously look at coastal cities with desal plants. Desal plants used to be a luxury earlier. Now it is possible to have desal plants, almost the cost what we are incurring for supply water, and make the water surplus and push the salinity ingress issue backward towards the oceans by pushing in the fresh water in there. So I think these are some of the strategies, but I personally feel we have to work on 5-6 fronts. One, I think where the water is seen as a bankable resource, and therefore if you are able to sell the water, then you are able to leverage that for money. That is something which we need to bring in. So some kind of water credit program has to be brought in at a macro level, at the city level. Water credits, if you have used lesser water, like I hear, I won't name the city. City A uses 1100 MLD to serve 60 lakh population. City B uses 1300 MLD to serve 40 lakh population. And city B claims it is very efficient because nobody is questioning that. So one is that there is an element of competition, and the competition should lead to leveraging money. And we had also proposed Payjal Sarvekshan in our program, Jal Jeevan Mission Urban, which is under formulation, that right now, let us look at the benchmarks, let us look at your freshwater bodies, and let us also say that 20% of your water for industry or any other use should come from recycled water. I think these 3-4 issues have been made part, and actually we want to follow it up. So I think it is important to bring in that element of money for water to actually actionize a lot of things what we are talking. That is one edge. Another edge is community. See, if you have 1,000 houses cluster, it could be an apartment complex or it could be a horizontal spread of houses. If we bring in clusters and make them accountable, भैया आपका 1,000 घर में हम पानी इतना दे रहे हैं, but इतना use हुआ है. We just publish this in a this thing. So that also helps. Second, transparency is very, very important in terms of water data. The third is, I mean, we need to look at and build employment around pipeline maintenance and leakage maintenance. It is too monopolized today. Fourth is we need to bring in the industries to buy only a policy which only encourages industries to buy in treated water. And treated water today, the problem is again, STPs are built, money is easy, but then the maintenance is an issue. So there is a lot of software issues in terms of water maintenance. So I think these are major thoughts which I could put forth. I don't want to be longer in my conversation.
No, we're going to come back to you. Thank you very much, Ms. Sara. If you can go to Mr. Niranjan, please. Mr. Vinod Niranjan, if you can tell us specifically about the challenges that you face in implementation of irrigation projects. Just the challenges and how it's going to get worse or otherwise post-COVID. Yeah, so you have to unmute yourself now. Yes, sir.
Good morning, everybody. And Mr. Avinash Misra and Mr. Ashok Kumar has previously laid down some very good policy framework and the different challenges and the different problems.
From you,
now I will be focusing on the what's the at the ground level, how it is, how for the situation at the ground level, and particularly with the point of view of Uttar Pradesh, and I think the same must have been in the other parts of the country also. In Uttar Pradesh, we have about 233 BMC of total water. Out of that, 43 surface irrigation and 117 is BMC is the groundwater. And out of all this water available, 80% of the total water is used for agriculture, and more than 80%. So this irrigation is the biggest user of this water. And right from even during the British time, Uttar Pradesh irrigation has been one of the oldest and one of the largest systems. And still in the country, it is one of the oldest and the largest. But of the late, we have been facing many of the problems. Many problems, and which Mr. Avinash Misra and Mr. Ashok Kumar has also laid out. The first thing, the structures has become quite old. They have that maintenance problems, some leakage problems, and silting of the dams. But in Uttar Pradesh, most of the irrigation systems are run of the river schemes. We don't have dams. But we have dams only in Bundelkhand and Vindhyachal region, which are non-Himalayan rivers. But as far as the Himalayan rivers are concerned, which there are the 12 major rivers like Ganga, Yamuna, Sarda, Gagra, and this UP is blessed with water. So we constructed some barrages, and from barrages, the water was diverted directly into the canal systems. So this silting problem of the dams and the reservoirs is only limited to the area of Bundelkhand and Vindhyachal region, that is the Varanasi, this Sonbhadra and Chandoli region. And rest of the whole West Uttar Pradesh, East Uttar Pradesh, Central UP, this is all run of the river schemes. But over the years, what we have found that dams, reservoirs ki capacity has been reduced to a very, very great extent, and it's not economical to desilt them. So we have constructed some dams on the other locations so that the water supply is not disturbed. And run of the river schemes, the main canals and the branch canals, because the silt load in Uttar Pradesh is very high. This is also, this capacity gets reduced after every, say, 10 to 15 years. And then we have to do a massive desiltation program for the bigger canals. The canal size is very big in Uttar Pradesh. Now, what problems that we face what we can do about it. First is the structural improvement. All the old structure, they need improvement. They need a complete revamping of it. Unfortunately, there is a program by the central government, the DRIP, it is called DRIP, it's the Dam Rehabilitation Improvement Program, probably with the help of the World Bank. And so we are looking forward that once this program gets implemented in October to 2020, some of our dams and structures will get a good overhaul. And secondly, as Mr. Ashok Kumar has said, that conveyance efficiency is losing day by day. So we need to improve the conveyance efficiency. And more important, the conveyance is the application efficiency. Application of efficiency at the field level is hardly comes to in Uttar Pradesh. It is we have measured at some of the points. It is hardly 20 to 28% only. So that if it goes to 60 or 65%, it can improve. Even not 70% may be a very ambitious target. Even if we improved up to 40%, we may save a large number of water. So, in fact, now no any other structures, no any other schemes needs to be constructed. We have to focus on the management of the water so that we improve the conveyance and the water application efficiency. Now, for this, many of the programs even initiated by the central government also. One is the water user efficiency, that this management of the water be instructed to the farmers who are the ultimate beneficiaries of the program. And therefore, the formation of Water User Association under an act, that is the PIM Act, Participatory Irrigation Management Act in Uttar Pradesh. It began in year 2011. And now we have formed many of the associations and entrusted the management of the water to the farmers themselves. Now, there is a problem, there is some social problems, there is some awareness problem. People try to monopolize all these things, and we are looking and improving how to stop this, that people don't monopolize, and the genuine farmers, they really participate. So that it's a long drawn process, and as the awareness increases, this is a very precious element that the nature has given to us. It needs to be used very efficiently. So the water user association, the formation of WEUAs must be taken up in a very large scale. This is the number one. Number two, how can we use some sprinklers and some drip irrigation wherever it is, although it is not suited to every crop. There are, for example, paddy and wheat, it is sprinkler is okay but drip irrigation is only suited for horticulture and some vegetable crops only. But wherever it is possible, we must encourage this use of sprinklers and drip irrigation. But here the problem comes that because it's a very capital intensive type of irrigation, and the farmers, majority of the farmers are not, they don't have that financial capability that they can use. So, the Department of Agriculture is involved here. The individual, that individual element is involved here. How much interest he takes in this? Does it benefit to her, to him? Because in Uttar Pradesh, the water is very abundant, and these canals are very big systems. So the economy is concerned, it becomes very cheaper for the farmer to use this traditional type of irrigation rather than using this sprinkler and drip. So we have to find out the ways how to give them incentive so that the farmer uses all these new type of irrigation methods so that we can save water. And I can tell you that in Uttar Pradesh, if we simply, probably in some other state also, if we simply improve our efficiency from say 25% to 45%, then we are going to be a surplus water state. There will be absolutely no any dearth of water, no any shortage of water anywhere. And we can divert this amount of water to the industries and to the drinking water also.
Thank you very much. Sir, I'm going to come back to you with questions. We just want to go to some other questions. Let me very quickly go to Mr. Roy from a ground reality point of view, from implementation of projects. What are the key issues that you see right now, sir?
Good morning, Alok, and to all the eminent panelists. I have actually listed out 3 questions and I will also say to whom I am addressing.
Okay.
One is a policy related issue, which I am addressing to Mr. Ashok Kumar and Ms. Tara. You see, water and sanitation are legally accepted essential services as per the ESMA Act 1981, which is a central legislation. But it does not include the word irrigation. This is applicable for cantonment areas, union territories, and central government jurisdictional areas. Water, sanitation, and irrigation are, we all know that, are state subjects as per the Indian Constitution. State governments have their respective ESMA acts. It is not clear whether in such acts water, sanitation, and irrigation are included under legally admissible essential services.
So let's have Mr. Ashok Kumar take a crack at it first, and then Ms. Tara. Mr. Kumar? Mr. Ashok Kumar?
This probably will have to look at the, I'm not sure about the act. I will check up and get back. I don't know whether because distribution of water and all, Tara would be dealing with. She may answer that question.
Yeah, Ms. Tara? Yeah.
What is the exact question? I mean, water is a state subject.
Yeah, you see, as per the ESMA Act, which is a central legislation, water and sanitation are legally admissible essential services. Now, this central legislation, the jurisdiction is restricted to union territories, cantonment areas, and central government ruled areas. Now, as you are aware that ESMA Acts, state governments, each state government also has ESMA Acts. Now, it is not clear that whether all the state governments have declared whether water, sanitation, and irrigation are legally admissible essential services. Now, if it is not there, I think this study is required, because if it is not there, a consensus is required to be built up, and some guidelines from the central government needs to be given, because in the post-COVID-19 situation, if you do not consider a subject which is legally admissible as essential, how will you ensure funding and expedite so many other issues for water and sanitation, which will ensure health security, and irrigation, which will ensure food security?
Okay. Ms. Tara?
Yeah, I would answer to the extent what I understand of this. One is, in ESMA, water is one of the essentials in many states. It has been listed as an essential service. But sanitation, I don't think that needs a study. Number one, I need to look at all the acts and then talk. However, more than the states, many of these municipal corporation laws sees water and sanitation as an essential subject. Why they see it and how they see it, I'll explain. They see it as an essential subject written on down, and that is the power they draw, that they can enter any premises, whether it is private or public. They can lay any pipeline in a private land or a public land. So because it is classified as essential service, it is a mandatory service. This is why all the municipal corporation acts, I mean, I'm not talking about other places, but I know of Gujarat, so I'm talking about Gujarat. So in Gujarat, the Municipal Corporation Act recognizes water and sanitation as an essential service, and that gives enormous powers to the municipal commissioner to enter into premises and regulate everything, even into a private premise. So it's a very empowering law. So therefore, water and sanitation are basic essential services in some states. But water I know, but sanitation I have to check. Many of the states have included water supply as an essential service.
Irrigation?
Irrigation I have to check. I'm sorry, I'm aware of the water supply, but irrigation, we need to check that. That's a very good point. Irrigation, I would only say like this. I mean, if one has to answer this question, it is, if I say irrigation is an essential service, then it should also become a fundamental right of a person to.
True.
Now the problem is the people who actually are the people's behavior mainly causes, stress on water resources. We are not water scarce, but we are water stressed definitely as a country. Not because we don't have water, because we don't manage it or we don't have the supply infrastructure reaching to the last mile, either of these reasons. But what I would say is, I think it's a very complex problem. By declaring it from the government, there's no way this problem, water is going to be handled as a legal framework by the government. If we introduce it as an essential service, we also need to bring in basic responsibility of the citizen to manage that essential service at his end with care and capability, which has to be complemented. It cannot be one system, becomes mandated to give a water because it is a fundamental essential service. Water is an essential service, but water is not essentially managed by government. It's
So
not.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Tara. And
Mr. Roy, what I would suggest to you is, to the three panelists, if you can send a note based on whatever you find where states you have an issue.
no, I have a specific question for Mr. Vinod Kumar Niranjan.
Right.
Yeah, you see, in NDA 1, Ministry of Water Resources took very positive and appreciable steps towards conversion of canal-based irrigation to closed conduit-based irrigation. You were talking of increasing efficiency from 28% to 60% in UP. Now, this is precisely why NDA 1 took these steps. Now, many states are adopting this new technology, whereas there are states like, I'm naming your state because you are here, like UP, which are lagging behind in this respect. In the post-COVID-19 world, where labor is scarce because of the migrant labor issue, which Mr. Ashok Kumar also referred to, adopting this new technology is of primal significance.
Okay.
So a consensus is required to be built around this, as canal-based irrigation requires huge labor in comparison to the new technology.
Let me just get to it, because Mr. Niranjan, do you agree or not agree?
Well, I do agree, but there are certain limitations as far as what Mr. Roy is suggesting. That Uttar Pradesh, the topography is very flat, and the silt load is very high. So in such a situation, open channel becomes the only option. I mean, the pipe irrigation, if the silting problems come, then there is hardly any solution, number one. Number two, in the areas of Bundelkhand and Vindhyanchal, where we have got quite comparatively clear water, we are starting some projects where pipe irrigation is being implemented there. For example, in the upcoming Pachnath project and in upcoming some of the pump house projects in district Lalitpur, we are using this pipe irrigation. But it is not possible and feasible to use it on a wide scale in other parts of the state.
Okay.
Okay. And Mr. Alok,
Yeah, Mr. Kumar had something to say, I think. Yeah.
No, I'll add a point there, because the water irrigation efficiency, water use efficiency is dependent on irrigation efficiency. That depends upon various factors. The storage efficiency is there, then the transmission efficiency is there, then you have seepage and leakages coming inside, then field to field movement of water. It's a product of 5-6 efficiencies is coming up there.
exactly.
See, this is a very costly proposition. It is because laying pipelines is an extremely costly proposition, even though it's good. It's like telling that we should have cement concrete roads all over the country because you don't get too much of repairs to the road. It is an ideal situation, a utopian situation, but it's very, very difficult. Where there is a lot of leakages, where there's a lot of extremely poor efficiency, probably we should try it up. That's a good point, but it's a very costly proposition.
Okay.
Mr. Roy, you have another question? Ms. Tara had something to say.
Yeah, I just have a point. I think, first of all, whether this strategy of, transporting water from a far off place, either through an open channel or through a piped this thing, shouldn't we look the other way and say we will now reduce average length of pipelines which will carry water and have the water on the field?
Yeah, I fully agree with Ms. Tara. I fully agree with Ms. Tara on this issue, because this is related to carbon footprint emissions and lot of other environmental issues that we should reduce lengths of pipelines or open channels for that matter.
Your next question, and then I'm going to bring
Yeah,
This is question I have. Sorry to take one more minute, half a minute.
Yeah, please.
I would request if Niti Aayog has done any study as to where there's rain, but still the water sources are very far. Can we do that? I mean, we need to do that in India to find out whether when there is rain, why can't it be harvested? And, targeted programs for that should come up, so that this is the rain fed area, and I don't want any of these places having water more than, say, 1 kilometer or half a kilometer away. So can we look at that kind of strategy? Even a private pond on a private agriculture field can become the water source through a legislation for that village, and it can be sold. Can we make it bankable? That's what
Mr. Mishra, can there be an audit of that sort also? I mean, you suggested
Actually, you see,
in terms of how far is somebody transporting power?
no, she is talking about water budgeting part, and as far as the water is concerned, farm ponds we are promoting actually, and also the common water bodies which are already there in various villages. You see, our village settings used to be that each village used to have 3 types of tanks, one for wastewater collection, another for irrigation purpose, and third for drinking and all other purposes. So actually we have lost that concept. We want to revive it. It has been encroached by the people. It has been even encroached by the community in case of the farmers themselves, in case of the Gram Panchayat themselves. So we are trying to revive it. There is a scheme for this purpose. And even Jal Jeevan Mission has got this, the revival of those water bodies and all that. So it is there. But as far as something like generating the pond water by the private entities are concerned, we are not promoting for the fresh water purpose. We are rather promoting for the wastewater collection, treatment, and thereafter putting it to reuse by the industries, not the farmers. So this is the approach, because we should go for the approach in a different way, which is adaptable and which is easily acceptable to this country, to the people at large.
Sir, I have a this thing to Ashok Kumar sir. Sir, we are dealing with can we really look at, instead of laying water and paying the money for the pipes, can we look at some villages as a pilot project where a private person can make a small pond? The water should be of a clear this thing. We can handhold that part, and he should supply to his village, and we are willing to buy it. Can we look at that?
Good suggestion. That's a business model. We'll look at it, but I'll add 1 or 2 points which Avinash said, adding to that. See, the time of big dams are over, because it is very difficult to construct big dam because of the environmental issues, because of the local problems and submergence. All things are coming up. So the big dam period is over, and the transportation of water in a canal, I think that time is over. So what we are looking forward in is the distributed water collection points. As I said, is catch the rain. Actually, our catch the rain tagline has 2 more parts: catch the line, where it falls, when it falls. It is, I repeat it, catch the rain, where it falls, when it falls. So whether it is falling in the farm or field, it should be caught there and stored there, and as soil moisture. See, the new concept which is developing is the storage of water as soil moisture, not as a water collected in a dam, because a lot of water is lost due to evaporation in the storage area. So the best way is to store the water as in the ground as soil water moisture, and you know that when you store the water as soil moisture, the water is also released slowly, and it will be available throughout the year. That's the way it is. So we, in fact, in the National Water Mission, we had a seminar as a part of this Sahi Fasal campaign. We had a talk from Dr. Walter Jean from Australia had come here, a microbiologist, how using carbon water sponge, we can store this water and get it released slowly. That should be the way it should going out. Tara, your point of trying to have small water sources developed in the village is a very good concept. I think we should go for decentralized water and also for water budgeting in that area, because there are in villages like Hiware Basar and all where they have done this water budgeting for the village. They calculate how much water is available, and their first priority is given for drinking water for humans. Then they give priority for the animals, livestock water. Then they go for crops, and in the crops also they, as a collective, decide this much area will go for paddy, this much area will go groundnut, this little area for that, and they distribute the cropping in the village. So unless the villages themselves take responsibility, because this is a top-down approach will not work. We can only tell them what exactly is to be done, or we can also advise them, because they are also traditional wisdom is always there. So we can facilitate them like using water use associations and plan their water budgeting. Ultimately, the solution would lie in water budgeting and water auditing in the area. Thank you.
I think that's it. We have lots of questions, and I'm going to go through a rapid fire thing. But Mr. Roy, I think I'll have you ask one question, and then we'll take questions from the audience.
Yeah, this is for Mr. Avinash Mishra.
Yeah, briefly, please.
Yeah, this is related to project financing. You see, it's becoming a major concern now. The revenue earning for the governments is primarily restricted to GST and disinvestment. GST collections are dwindling, and disinvestment looks a remote possibility. So in this scenario, external funding is going to be the major resource of funds for projects. And external funded projects have also a very long lead time for the projects to fructify because of its various adherence to protocols. And it will also increase the fiscal deficit.
Yeah, Mr. Roy, your question, please.
Yeah, my question is, in this scenario, how will the budgets be allocated to the projects for water, sanitation, and irrigation?
Okay, Mr. Mishra. Unmute, sir. You'll have to unmute, sir. Sorry.
I'm sorry. The government budget for water and sanitation, 3.6 lakh crore, we already put for the Jal Jeevan Mission. Something close to 80,000 crore we have put for Swachh Bharat Mission Gramin. This makes 440 lakh crore. And then also something close to 1.40 lakh crore is to come for irrigation structure. This is Prime Minister Krishi Sinchai Yojana. So government is well aware that to attract the external assistance in case of the irrigation will not be that lucrative, and it can add to the budget deficit part. That is well taken, and that government is already making lot of the outlays being put lot is compared to what it is used to be earlier. But the situation is not only here. You see, is the proliferation of new projects, particularly in irrigation sector, they are very constrained because of the geological region. We cannot come up. So we need the water management part, improvement of water management on each and every aspect of water uses. Regarding the house connection part is concerned, as I already said you, 3.6 lakh crore is already there, and by 2024, the present house connection in the country is 18%. The piped water house
funding will not be an issue from your point of view.
Funding is not at all a constraint. This is going to cater very well.
Yeah, so that's what we heard from Ms. Thara also the other day. I'm going to go to the rapid fire questions mode because we have about 40 odd questions. So I'm going to ask people for 30 seconds, 45-second answers. First question is from Kiran Kumar Sharma about recycling of water. I think Mr. Mishra already talked about recycling of water in industries. Ms. Thara, if I can go to you, recycling of water for domestic use, is that feasible, realistic or not?
I don't think it is feasible as of now.
All right. The next one is a very general question. People not getting good drinking water. How will the government solve the issue? So I think, can I just ask you one question, Ms. Thara? How many people are getting drinking water, in your opinion? Good drinking water?
I think, in all the cities put together, good drinking water, I think it is almost 65 to 70%.
Okay. Nanda Mohapatra makes a point, sorry, 60%. Yeah. Nanda Mohapatra is just making the point that groundwater varies from area to area. Ravindra Kumar Agarwal, I think this is for Mr. Ashok Kumar. Farmers' demand is highest field demand, which is for increase in moisture in fields, and crop demand, which is actually needed. What steps are proposed? I think Mr. Ashok Kumar has already talked about Sahi Fasal. That answers many of his questions. Another question, again from Mr. Kumar, Ashok Kumar, Nanda Mohapatra, how do you incentivize the farmers in high water available area? Mr. Ashok Kumar, if water is available, how do you make sure they don't overuse it? Yeah, unmute, sir. You have to unmute, sir, I think.
This is a very interesting solution, because we all not only have to incentivize people in the high water area to go for crops which are suited there, we have to disincentivize the people who are drawing more water from the water stress area. We have to have both the approaches. Incentivizing in the form of going for crops which will ensure food security in the country. That's one thing which the procurement policy and all these things has to be done. Whereas more important than that is to disincentivize the farmers who are using more water from in the water stressed area. That's what I feel.
Okay. The next question I'll send to Mr. Mishra. This is from Mr. Dorje Gamba, who's Director of Central Warehousing Corporation. He's discussing the case of Amritsar, where he says that people are using groundwater even though there is a canal water that is passing right through Amritsar city. So how can the government take this view? Are things like this happening? Mr. Mishra, you have to unmute yourself again, sir. So you have to unmute yourself again.
I'm in fully agreement what Mr. Dorji is saying, that the groundwater should not be used as it is being done, or rather the surface water should be used. And there is again a quality problem in case of the Amritsar. I don't know why the civic body is doing so. They should be sensitized enough to go for the surface water. I'll take it.
Next question, I'm not sure who to direct it to because I'm not understanding the question. What is the status of IWRM in basin scale under NWM, under National Water Mission? Mr. Kumar, what is the status of IWRM in basin scale?
We are actually, for that, we have to start with the baseline study. Baseline study has to be conducted. Right. So we are doing that in 8 or 9 river basins, which is being done. So in fact, it should have been over by March, but then we were planning to have a meeting, but the lockdown came. Otherwise, March, some areas we should have done the results also there. So this process is on. Unless you have a baseline survey done, we'll not be able to go for the next step. So that's the stage now.
Okay. Next question from Mr. Mishra from Manjunath Siddhanajappa. He says there's not enough water allocated to private sector industries. Do you agree?
Yeah, I fully agree, because you see the agriculture is using the water to the tune of something around 89 to 90%, and then thereafter domestic the water for industries are very less. And I think a shift is required by efficiency improvement in the agriculture sector and to take out the water for the industry and even all of the services sector. I am in fully agreement, and we are trying to shift it. We are trying to do the same thing.
Okay. Next question from Mr. Ashok Kumar. Somebody wants to talk about water stock exchanges. Is that a way to sort of bring some efficiency? Water stock exchange.
Yes, that's a good concept. See, there are all good concepts, because as Tara was telling, we should know the value of water. Right. Unless we know the value of water, not the price of water, the value of water, then comes the price of water. Stock exchange will not work. So this is something which is a very good concept, but I don't know whether we can really implement it at this stage now.
Okay, for Ms. Tara, are there any funds available for doing water saving projects in schools?
I don't have any specific funds for water saving projects. Already Amrut mein jo commit ho gaya. But mera ye tha ki one of the things which I wanted to tell you is in Bangalore there was a move. I don't know how far it fructified. Look, if you want to make people realize the value of water, it has to be through a strong regulation. At least, for example, in Bangalore, you need to use treated water for construction. Now, this is on paper, but how do they, if somebody is treating the water, that water should be allocated to them, and there is an app they were developing to see that it is logged in and said, so itna pani humne treat kiya, inko diya. Then only this fellow gets the plan approval. He ties up with the person who gives the water. I mean, something of that sort was evolving. I'm sure it has not evolved fully, otherwise it would have made a lot of news. But I think we need to look at this paradigm, at least for industries and this thing. So we can create through a regulation market for water.
Okay. From Deepak Shah.
Actually, I'll tell you, I will say in Singapore, it is banned to use potable water for any other non-potable purposes.
Okay.
Something we should come to.
Okay, Deepak Shah is simply making a point about using water efficiently in post-corona world. So we'll let that be a comment. From Mr. Alok Kumar, he wants to know whether, he says the techniques that are used for recharging borewell water or through rainwater harvesting are not so simple. Are there simple techniques available? Is that true, Mr. Mishra? I thought rain harvesting was pretty simple.
No, actually the rainwater harvesting technique is what he is raising. The question is not really very much out of the context. It is very much true, because the rainwater harvesting concept is there that I need to construct a well along with a shaft, but it should get the connectivity with the water table below, which is not happening in majority of the cases, and that is the reason the water is not getting recharged. Also, the filter media which I have placed is also not working adequately. So the question what he has raised is absolutely right. It should be a specified job, and it should be given like some chartered engineers. Similarly, it should be chartered hydrogeologist and all. Then only the things will happen truly in a correct fashion.
Okay,
I'll add one more point here.
Please.
Actually, in the plan which we have proposed for the Catch the Rain program, we have suggested that in every district there should be a rain center open. See, as he rightly said, everybody talks about rainwater harvesting structures. Most of them people do not know exactly how to construct it. So it's a very simple structure, but then technically and estimates are not really available. So what our concept of this rainwater harvesting structure, this Catch the Rain, was that there should be a dedicated person or 3 or 4 people with a dedicated mobile number in every district who will be answering questions and guiding the people technically and on the financial estimate part of it on making the rainwater harvesting structures.
Right.
And then they will go help them out. That's what we are looking at it.
Okay, we still have a bunch of questions, so I'll go through fast. River linkage, Gaurav Samani has a question. Mr. Mishra, about anything on the river linkage?
Yeah, actually the river linking proposal, particularly in case of the Ken-Betwa, Parthapi, and another one is there. So all these 5 links are there. Those are in priority, and we are thinking to go ahead. But actually it is something like this, that one state is agreeing, another state is to agree the surplus water. In case of Ken-Betwa, some time back Madhya Pradesh was not agreeing, and UP was saying, no, I don't want this quantum of water, it should be higher, somewhat higher quantum of water is to be there. So these nitty-gritties are involved because water is a state subject, but certainly we are going too much in advanced state. We have completed all our pre-feasibility report, our DPRs are ready, and in case of 5 links, we are almost ready along with the funds. But only the preparedness and minor states actually issues needs to be resolved, which the government is very much working on.
Question from Abha Sargaonkar is for Ms. Thara. To reduce NRW, NEERI has developed a decision support system for pipe condition assessment and replacement planning of pipes so that systematic asset management can take place by the water boards. They would like to bring the implementation to Amrut.
Yes, we are open to it, and in fact, it will be a great idea if they can, touch base with us and present what they've done, so that we can also relate to the states. A lot of states.
All right. The next question is from Kalol Saha, who is hydrologist working with the government of Jharkhand, and says that small smart kiosk-based solar-powered water supply aided by local storage facility has great potential. Local government organization can easily collect taxes and charge on a prepaid basis. How is Jal Jeevan Mission? Could Jal Jeevan Mission take it up?
Already, I think, these kind of water, sources means actually, they are talking about raw water, treated water being dispensed at some of the habitations in the cities, which happen even today. There is this water ATM, which is happening in Delhi, Bangalore, and many other cities. where the slums cannot get household water nearby, and sometimes there is a problem of pollution between the pathways are very narrow, and therefore slums and chawls especially. So there is water ATM. If they are talking about it, already it is happening. It is a last mile connectivity part for the slums. But if it is a water storage structure and treatment structure in a very decentralized manner, it really needs a lot of monitoring in terms of quality.
Okay, question, I guess for Mr. Ashok Kumar. Micro irrigation is okay in some states, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, but not elsewhere. Do you have any metric for that, sir?
There's a scheme, drip scheme in the Ministry of Jal Shakti. They are promoting this micro irrigation in all over the country. Some of the states have taken lead, like Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, and Gujarat and all, they have taken lead. Some other states have not taken lead. This is something which can be done over the years, because awareness has to be built in and the political commitment has to come in. So this is where some states which are forward looking have already taken a lot of leeway in it. Others have not done it.
Okay, for next question from Mr. Mishra, from someone who doesn't want to give their name, it's observed that most of the states are interested in creating IPC through major projects and are extracting groundwater without any control. However, there is no motivation from the center to improve the efficiency of the existing systems, although we saw motivation from you, and no hard rules on extracting groundwater. So are there should there be a national water policy which has hard rules on extraction of groundwater?
No, actually, the national water policy is already there. And as far as the hard rule for extracting the groundwater is concerned, the groundwater gets governed with the Easement Act 1882, which says that if I am owning a piece of land, the water below it is also owned by the person who is owning the land. And central government is seriously thinking to make the amendment in this particular thing. And we are going in a mode like sensitizing the users for the groundwater part, that it's a common pool resource. It is not an individual resource. And we are also suggesting that use the observation wells, which we call the piezometers, to record the community level of the water, and accordingly it should be used. But as you know, to inculcate the discipline in the states and in the people, it takes time. So it is that time actually.
Lots of questions, so I'm going to pick up some of them and ask brief answers also. This is a question from Mr. Ashok Kumar from Abhay Joshi. Any programs reducing the NRW in irrigation and reducing the water loss and theft in agriculture sector? Yeah, sir, you have to unmute yourself.
This is the problem with water is there are no single agency handling it. This is a state subject and states have to handle it. So this is they have to do it. We are trying to increase awareness on this water management and using the water efficiently. But this essentially is a state subject and they have to handle it.
Okay. Question for Ms. Thara. Will there be Amrut Phase 2? This question comes from M. Lakshmanan.
Yeah, there is a Jal Jeevan Mission Urban which has been proposed on the EFC stage.
Mm-hmm.
There might be a little delays because of the present COVID situation. Yes, it is under way.
Okay. Next question I'll pose to Mr. Mishra, because I don't know who to do it. Can incentives to CWMI increase the sanctity and seriousness from states? I don't know what CWMI are.
Yeah, actually, we are trying to incentivize it, because you see, first now it's the third year of the CWMI, and receptivity of the state and also people at large, not only here, but it is one of the most downloaded document as per the Google records. So that seems that the people are accepting it very well. And now the Honorable PM and many are thinking seriously to incentivize the states based on their credit ratings, etc., on the CWMI.
Okay.
So we are in the process.
Question from Mr.
Not done so far.
Yeah. Question from Ms. Thara. This is a question that talks about if hand pump water contaminates, who checks the quality and awareness of public health? But I will make it a broader question. Who is checking the quality of water from a public health point of view? Ms. Thara.
Actually, there is a mandate for the corporations and the municipalities to publish their potability parameters, some of the parameters like TSS and BOD, COD and all that. But I don't know, I'm not sure whether all the states and all the cities are following it, but most of the cities do publish it, especially bigger cities, they do publish it. It is one of the mandatory conditions.
Yeah, another question for you, Ms. Tara, about Amrut. This Haresh Pillai is concerned that COVID might delay the projects, and Jal Jeevan and Har Ghar Jal. Could you tell them whether it will delay or not delay?
Oh, it's like this, that, you know, give it this thing that Uttar Pradesh has already started some of the projects on the field.
Okay. Mr. Kumar, somebody wants to know.
As the labor is coming in, the work has been restarted.
Okay. Mr. Kumar, question from Nanda Mohapatra. What about a coastal reservoir in National Water Mission?
Coastal reservoir, I don't know.
I don't have any
using
idea.
desalination water or something, I don't know.
I don't.
The coastal reservoir is very much required to increase the salinity of the coastal region, and we are trying to develop this. And this is a part of the watershed development component. So we are doing this. This is already under the Prime Minister Krishi Sinchai Yojana, because otherwise the salinity will increase. That's what she is trying to say.
Okay. Next question for Ms. Tara. Water urban authorities are going to be instituted for efficiency enhancement. What is the government plan for institutional strengthening of water urban authorities? I'm not sure we can answer that in 30 seconds, but I'll figure out.
Very differently. Look, we are not looking at water urban authority. I don't know. I'm not very aware of it. I need to know more about it. But what we are now doing is one of the recommendations for by the Ministry of Finance for borrowing more by the state governments is they have to link their user charges.
Okay.
In the current market, this thing, and show a roadmap of improving every year. So
Okay.
I think the best way to sustain water is by increasing its charge. The moment the money comes into play, everything will fall in place.
Okay, a question from Mr. Abhay Agarwal talking about money. He says out of 3.6 lakh crore, only 10,000 crore has been provided. So,
It's rural, not urban. Urban,
Yeah.
we had promised.
Mr. Mishra had mentioned 3.6 lakh crore.
No, in urban we promised 77,000 crore. So far we have released already 27,000 crore.
Okay. Mr. Mishra, he's talking about 3.6 lakh crore.
No, this is rural. We may not.
The rural part, I am saying 3.6 lakh crore.
Yeah.
And 30,000 crore is already been released. The
Not-
information for 10,000 crore is wrong.
Okay, all right. We're just going to skip some of these questions. Okay. Because some of them you've already answered. Performance of restructured municipalities is low. I guess, Ms. Tara, they were talking about a water regulator. Is a water regulator required, do you think, Mr. Mishra?
Yeah, water regulatory authority.
Utility regulator will not be a bad idea, because, somebody has to, a third party which is, empowered, should look at the way cities are handling water.
Right.
So, and how they're reaching, there is no service level benchmark by any city. 135 LPCD of, whatever UN and all is, we don't need that, because 135 LPCD for a small house, there should be equity in payment. If you use more, you pay more. If you use less, you pay less. So I think benchmarking of various things, everything is absent. We need to look at that. Benchmarking of
I will add to that. Actually, water regulatory authority is very much required. The reason being because we are even the National Water Policy 2019, which is in formation, and I am also one of the member of that. This is being one of the strong recommendation. Presently, only in Maharashtra, the water regulatory authority is working, because if the authority is there, it can really make the allocation of water for various purposes, right from domestic, the agriculture, and the industries. And not only this, even the regulatory authority is also allocating the wastewater to which part of that should go to industry, and also control the rate part. So what should be the pricing of water? So this all is required. So the regulatory authority is very much required.
We have so many questions that are unanswered, but we have this time constraint here that we have to end now. What we will do is somebody will make a record of these questions, and we will address them to Mr. Mishra or Mr. Kumar or to Ms. Tara or to Mr. Naranjan, and try to get the answers back to you, if that's okay by the panelists. And it's been a very interesting discussion. I almost wish we had another half an hour or 1 hour more, which we don't. But lots of very interesting questions, which we will send to you in any case, sir, because you may just want, they might spark some ideas for your own.
Can I add something?
Yeah, Mr. In just for a minute or two, because we have to apparently end this program ends in 2 minutes apparently. So yeah, go ahead, sir.
I just want to bring to the notice of because there is Mr. from NITI Aayog, Mr. Kumar,
right?
That our small rivers are drying up. These small tributaries of big rivers are somehow water is there, but small rivers are drying up, and this is going to cause a great problem in the near future. So please do some policy.
Thank you.
On how to revive small rivers.
I'll tell you.
Focus on small rivers.
Yes. If you look at my screen, there's a cascade rain is there. One of the major points in this cascade rain is also rejuvenating small rivulets. I was earlier with the National Mission for Clean Ganga. Basing on the concept we have learned from that, we are actually trying to push that in every district, at least one small rivulet or one or two stretches of the rivulet should be regenerated. So that's one of the part of the cascade rain campaign.
Thank you. Yeah, please, very briefly, just we have just 1 more minute.
I'll tell you, Gujarat for the past 2-3 years, even before that, long back we had that this thing. Before the monsoon, we sort of clear all the channels. Okay, this is the best way to harvest water, simple, and it could be done through NREGA also, but everything should be identified. And, most of the time we can use even the bulldozers, JCBs. So I think this has rejuvenated a lot of small rivers. You clean up that river and you let the water channels operate.
NITI Aayog has already developed one concept model. Mr. Niranjan, you just send your mail to me, email address, I'll forward it. It has got the complete guide how to rejuvenate the rivers.
And sir, one small.
Niranjan, have to close it here.
Sir, please. Sir, one small suggestion that this construction of check dams has proved very detrimental to the small rivers. Kindly take note of it.
Okay.
It's a very good and important point. And on that productive note, we will close the session. Again, we wish maybe we had 3 hours for this, but then we wouldn't have commitment of speakers for 3 hours. That would have been the issue. But it's been a very informative, very insightful session. Thank you very much, Mr. Mishra and Mr. Ashok Kumar. And people should listen to his water talks or log into his water talks that he does every week. Mr. Niranjan, thank you very much. We have a session with Mr. Niranjan on Monday separately on UP Irrigation and UP. Please do log into that or let us know. And Ms. Tara, as always, who has been addressing our various forums over the last few years, as always, thank you very, very much. And Mr. Roy, thank you for supporting this initiative, because everything costs some more money and you supported us in that way.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much.
And just to let you know, we had 270 people logged in for the seminar. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Nikita, you will stay on for any comments or feedback, right?
Yes, I'll stay.
Yeah, the panelists can leave.